Alright, fellas. Well, it is December of 2020, and, well, it's been a hell of a year and we're almost over. So I'm going to do this kind of year-end video, if you will. I've seen a few people make posts on social media. A few people have actually talked to me about what it's going to take to get into reloading. They're really considering it. And some of them have talked about stockpiling certain things and components, and I've told them that, well, that time is probably coming past, as this is something that I pay attention to because I do quite a bit of shooting, and I thought I would do this rather long and drawn out video on what you would need, bare minimum, the necessities, if you will, to go with your pocketbook. So you see here, there's a few different pieces of equipment on the table. There's some gunpowder that we haven't been able to find for a while. There's a few odds and ends that are necessary, a few things maybe not, but depending on your budget, what you're trying to do, as well as just maintain a certain level of affordability when it comes to shooting, I thought I would go ahead and maybe enlighten some of you if you're looking into getting into this hobby, because for me and several others, that's what it has become. It's not just a necessity, it is a hobby. It is something you enjoy doing, and I can't do some of the shooting that I do and now my son is doing if I wasn't reloading, because buying factory ammunition is just not as affordable, for one, but the accuracy that we demand for competition bench rest shooting is just a little higher demand than what you can get out of a box on the store shelf. And there are some pretty impressive groups that I've seen from factory ammo, but at the end of the day, the guys that lose are usually the ones not using the best stuff. And I'm one of those people. I don't have the best of the best. I'm just now getting into the better end of the equipment and the components and that sort of thing. So without further ado, I'll probably get off topic a couple of times through this video, but we'll go ahead and dive right in. When I got started into this hobby, I was always reloading shotgun shells. I used to shoot a lot of trap, skeet, sporting clays, 5 stand, and shot competition for quite a few years. Had a scholarship to go to college to shoot trap, and so reloading was not something that was a foreign language to me. I was familiar with it, and I didn't, well, I didn't really ever put the hobby down. I still shoot a little bit of trap, but I always enjoyed shooting rifle, so that has just evolved, if you will. And I started getting into reloading before the last shortage that we had, and this was back from, well, coincides with the recession 2008 to 2012. I was buying my components, my equipment, and I had a rather tight budget. So I enjoyed Cabela's. Back then, I don't think Bass Pro had any other store other than the one Bass Pro in Springfield, Missouri. So the place that I went to college, they had a Cabela's, and I was able to go there to waste time. And when I'm out of college, I come home. So Cabela's was where I shopped online, and I pick up the Lee Breech Lock Challenger Press kit. I think I paid $110 for the kit way back then. Came with that press, as you see, along with a powder measure, scales, and a few odds and ends. Very basic. And for $110, you would expect it to be basic. So after doing that, I pick up, because I'm going to reload for 30-06. So I need the Lee cutter, which is there, and the lock stud, which is there. And then you need your case length gauge, that long thing there. Sorry about the glare. That long thing there that's attached to the cutter. Those are case specific, caliber specific. And then also this little guy right down here is what came with the press for deburring and chamfering. I bought the Cabela's brand. A friend of mine had an RCBS rock chucker kit, and it had one of these chamfer and deburring tools, and I loved it. So I thought I would get the Cabela's branded one since it was about half the price of the RCBS one. Came with balance beam scales. Not terrible. Wouldn't recommend them. And it's based on the knowledge that I have today. So, we're talking about, like 15 years ago, guys. Prices have changed since then. Not to mention the amount of calibers that I reload for now and what I do with those calibers. So, this system worked. I bought a used set of RCBS full length dies. I asked a lot of questions to friends of mine that reloaded, and I used this press and everything as you see, just the way it is, for sizing my brass, and I could trim it using the tools there. And then I thought, well, I need to clean it obviously, so I went with the Lyman Vibratory case tumbler, and we did a little bit of a research and found that the walnut hole media was the most aggressive. So I got a box. I think it's a 20-pound box right down there of tough nut walnut hole treated media, and that box is still half full. I have since, and looking back on all of it, I would not have bought that. But we didn't have the wet tumblers then that we do now. And I tell you, it is tons faster, a whole lot better. Cleanup is a breeze. That thing is great and does a good job, but let me tell you, walnut hole media is a mess. I hear corn cob's not as bad, but I prefer the wet tumbling. And I did load up a few rounds tonight. I'll go ahead and grab them and set them up here. So you see what that looks like. I mean, that brass has been sitting in that box for 3 weeks now. And of course, bullet's a bullet. So, and that brass has been loaded 10 times. And it still looks brand new. That was ran through that tumbler for an hour. One simple hour. It's that fast. And I know for maybe a rookie reloader that may not mean a whole lot, but it will make a difference in the long run. But the difference in price, I mean, you're going to have, well, when I bought this was like $80 versus over $100 or about $100. And then you got to buy your media, stainless steel media pins for the wet tumbler, and then obviously your walnut hole for the vibratory. Stainless steel media pins don't have a shelf life and they don't wear out, whereas the walnut hole media does. So then, moving on, I decide after a little while that I'm going to reload another caliber, and I go to 223. I picked up an AR-15. So no longer just reloading bolt gun 30-06. Now I'm going to reload semi-automatic platform, and 223 I'm going to need several rounds. So I sit down one night, and one day, and then another night, and it was basically a whole weekend. I worked 4/10, so I had a 3-day weekend, and I trimmed about 600 pieces of brass using, and I didn't have the lock stud then. I had that little guy right there in 223. So let me tell you, my fingers hurt for 3 days. And then of course I chamfered and deburred every single one of them with that little tool that I showed you earlier. And I said after that I will be getting a power case trimmer. So along came the Hornady Case Prep Center, the biggest investment and addition to my at then small reloading bench and all of the equipment that I had. That was the biggest and heaviest, also the most expensive. So this thing at the time was $400, and I'm pretty sure I had some sort of free shipping promotion or coupons or something, because at this time Cabela started sending me stuff. Said, hey, this guy's spending a little bit of money with us. Well, that helped out, and this thing has trimmed, deburred, chamfered thousands of pieces of brass over the years. And as you can see, there's brass clippings and shavings all around it and all over it. I still use it today. It is not used near as much as it used to be, but it is still very vital to what I do. So, moving on, I decided after my first 600 rounds of single stage reloading and then swapping out that bullet seating die for a crimp die, that I would love to have a progressive press. So I had a girlfriend, and I proposed, and eventually we did get married. And for a wedding gift, she bought me the lock and load progressive press from Hornady. Now, I'm not going to go into why I went with this press, why I decided I wanted this one, because I was looking at a Lee, I was looking at a Dillon, I looked at the RCBS. I took every single progressive press out there into consideration. This was the one that I preferred. Price didn't really have a whole lot to do with it. And we ended up, well, she got this for me. I don't remember what I got for her. That was several years ago, but it might have been a ring. Anyway, I decided down the road, and when I say down the road, I mean like 5 and 6 years later, to add the case feeder. And that makes a world of difference in your case prep time as well as your reloading. But that wasn't something that was a necessity. I mean, we're talking 400 at the time, 400 for the press, and I don't remember what the case feeder was. But at the end of the day, no, it's not something that you absolutely need. If I had everything to do over, and I mean everything, from a single stage press point of view, I'm not disappointed with this press. I like it. It's not bad. I prefer a cast iron. I really like the Hornady iron press. And it's not because I've got Hornady there, and Hornady over here. It has nothing to do with that. I like a press that's strong and can handle the cam over power. This is a cast aluminum, and it's not very robust. So I don't feel like it has the strength to load anything for a magnum action. You know, long action 270, 30-06, 25-06, that's the biggest I've gone. If I'm loading 300 Win Mag, 7 Mag, and even bigger, I would prefer a heavier duty press. I don't think it's strong enough for what I would be doing. I'm sure it would handle it for a certain amount of time, but maybe not, I don't know, maybe not for years. So I would, well, at the time they didn't have the iron press, but I would have gotten something a little more robust. And the RCBS Rock Chucker it's a good solid press. I loaded several rounds on it before I decided and settled on this Lee Breech Lock Challenger kit. Down the road, the scales, I do recommend buying a good set of scales. And all your kits are going to come, well, most of them, not all of them anymore, but they used to be all of them, come with a balance beam scale. Okay, there's nothing wrong with a balance beam scale. They can be very, very accurate and tuned to the T. Your digital scales, the more you spend, the more accurate they are. And now some of your high-end presses come with your high-end digital scales that are extremely accurate and will outperform that balance beam scale. And we reload as a hobby, but we also like to spend time at the range. So take that into consideration. And one thing to know, that the more time you save using those cutters versus this cutter for trimming saves time, but also costs money. using that scale versus the auto charge. I mean, all I do is set the scale pan on there and it does the rest. That costs more money but saves a lot more time. I can go this route. I have the concentricity gauge. It is not necessary for a rookie reloader. Your reloads are going to be good. You don't even have to really check your bullet run out. Okay? It's not a must, but depending on what you're doing, if you're just hunting, trying to have a good time at the range on the weekend, if you want to get better, spend more time at the range. When you get to a point where you're shooting half-inch and better groups at 100, then maybe start looking at your bullet run out. Maybe going with an arbor press with a chamber seating die from L.E. Wilson or something of like that nature. That just saves a lot of time. I mean, you don't even have to use the concentricity gauge if you go with the arbor press and that die. I mean, for $200, you've got a system that works and you don't even have to use a concentricity gauge. And then your calipers. I mean, a lot of people say those are not good calipers. Hornady doesn't make them. They just took a cheap caliper and slapped their name on it. You can go to Fastenal and get a dial caliper. I mean, a digital caliper works better if you're going to use the bullet comparator, which is this little guy here. That's going to measure case base. Your case base will sit here, and then the ogive. So the bullet goes in the hole, and then you just bring this in, and then it measures it. So you can imagine, put this on and then zero out your caliper is a whole lot easier with digital than it is with a dial. So the more you want to do, the more precision, if you will, the more you're going to spend. At the end of the day, you're going to need a powder measure. You're going to need some set of scales. You're going to need a press. I would recommend a single stage if you've never reloaded. You're going to need tools to trim your brass because the brass will run out and we'll get to the point where it will not chamber. Get you a loading block. Okay, this is something that I have not always had. It does make life easier. Beforehand, I always used these case guards. MTM makes a good case guard. It's strong. Barry's also makes good ones. It'll hold your brass while you're reloading. It'll hold your brass while you're shooting. But I don't know, something about the bleacher block case holder just makes life easier. Moving on from there, you see the gloves on the table. So it's not necessary, but if you're going to prep a lot of brass and trim it, you're also going to need case lube, and therefore you're going to get that stuff on your fingers. I like wearing gloves because, well, my fingers stay clean that way. It looks like, and a lot of people don't have problems with it, I didn't at the time. I've just recently started wearing gloves. It looks like you've been working in a machine shop or changing bearings on farm equipment or lift equipment or just anything that has grease and oil and that sort of thing. So if it doesn't really bother you, it's not really necessary for you to wear gloves, but I just like to take them off and then go eat supper and then come back, put them back on, and get back to it. So, and we'll go ahead and back up. We go all the way from there, all the way over here. So that is just shy of 12 feet. I started with 4 feet, guys. This little table, those legs right there, those 4x4s, that was my first reloading bench. That press was mounted there. The tumbler was over there. And I did all my reloading right there on a 2 foot wide by 4 foot wide bench. I picked up the stuff I needed at Menards to build it, and a handsaw, cordless drill, screws, and it was together. I used an MDF top. A lot of people use plywood. I have since gone in, got this prefab slate countertop. It's what Menards calls slate. It's a oh, what's that material called? I can't remember right offhand, but you all know what it is. It was like $60 at Menards, and it was 12 feet, so it was a little less than a foot that I cut off of one end. I set it on there and screwed up through my MDF top, and really made everything a lot more rigid. If I had to do over again, I would not have used MDF. I would have used a plywood. A lot stronger. And if you get a butcher block, well, that'd be even better. But now you're talking about a lot of money. I mean, I had $40 in that lumber to build my table or my reloading bench, and I had 110. Well, it was probably about 120 because I had to pay tax for my reloading kit, and then 80 for the tumbler, 20 for the, maybe it was $12. Yeah, I think it was $12 for the media back then. May still be. And then the odds and ends, like your cutter, your lock stud, your deburr and chamfer tool. Those little things will nickel and dime you before you know it, you've dropped $100 on it. After you get your equipment, your next big thing is components. Okay, if you're trying to get into the game right now, you're probably a little late, and you're probably going to overpay. So let me show you what I'm getting at with components. Okay, so we have different bullets, different calibers. You kind of see what I'm using for some of my bench rest and precision rifle shooting. We do varmint bench rest. We do some pistol shooting as well, a little bit of 3-gun. I just buy my shotgun shells now. I don't reload them. I don't shoot enough to justify it, but really and truly, it's not even justifiable. Even if I did shoot enough, it's not really cost effective to reload for trap and skeet anymore. So, primers. So you see the price tag. I just picked them up not too long ago, but that one back there, that's usually what I pay. And depending on what primers you use, I mean, I keep it pretty simple. Those two there are for a buddy of mine. He's low on stock, so I was at the store. I seen them. He said, "Yeah, I need them," so I picked them up for him. We move on to we go through probably about 4,000 rounds of pistol a year, and I pick up a few 1-pounders on occasion. I prefer to get everything in 8-pound jugs. I mean, 223, 224 Valkyrie, AR-10, 300 Blackout, 9mm, 308 bolt, and then I got some RL-15 back there in the corner that I use a little bit of every now and then. A little bit of RL-19 in the back. I mean, this is a stock that you're going to build, and it's going to take years to get here maybe. And if you got a slightly deeper pocket than I do, then you're going to get there quicker. And then your dies. So the first set of dies that I bought, I've since replaced, and you see the different calibers. Small base 223, full length 308, small base 308 because I've got 308 bolt gun as well as 308 semi-auto, 25-06, 9mm, 300 Blackout, 30-06 for bolt gun, 30-06 for semi-automatic, 224 Valkyrie. I had 6.5 Creedmoor over there on the reloading bench. So here's the hand primer that came with the press. I still have it. I still use it. Okay, not as smooth as an RCBS. Not absolutely terrible. It's primed. Well, I don't even know how many cases at this point. Thousands. And it still holds up. It comes with several shell holders when you buy the kit. I keep the common ones that I use up here with my primer flip tray because I do load progressive for my semi-auto calibers, with the exception of 30-06. I do it on a single stage. I've got a rifle bullet feeder now. and the 30 cal conversion kit for it, so I can do 223 and 30 or 308 with the single pull of the arm on my progressive press. I have boxes full of 9mm, and you're gonna stock up on all sorts of odds and ends. I have several rounds down here as well. So anyway, back in here, the company that I work for started dealing these Plano plastic ammo boxes, and I started picking them up. Started with 1, went to 2, went to 4. Now I think I'm up somewhere around 20, and I have some boxes in there that have just some loose brass that needs to be processed. None of my loaded rounds are down there. That's all brass ready to either needs to be worked up or is worked up ready to be loaded. Typically I keep that stuff in the safe once it's loaded up. But if you remember back into the closet, sorry about this, not only components, you're going to need a few tools. So, I mean, I started out with just putting some things in a blue parts bin. I had a pair of pliers, crescent wrench, channel lock pliers. That was it. And I've moved on to several more things. And this, I mean, I've got some power tools down there. This isn't just for reloading. Okay, this is kind of the tool room as well. But we have all kinds of odds and ends. You know, you're going to have a few extra bullets here and there that you're going to need to do something with. You don't always have a box to put them in. Just all kinds of random stuff that deals with reloading that you're going to have to do stuff with. And the more you're in it, the more things you do. As when I say more things you do, I mean the more calibers, the more powders you have to handle because of the different calibers that you load. The more you shoot, the more you're going to need space for. So you can start out small, go big, and there's setups that are a lot more elaborate than this. Some people have a corner in a hallway or a room. Some people have as much as what I've got here. Some people have a whole lot more. I guess basically what I'm getting at, and the purpose of this whole video, is you can start with something as simple as this cheap Lee single stage press and go from there. You can go bigger and get a nicer press, and if you just buy the press and piece together a kit, maybe you don't want to mess with a beam scale. Maybe you want to go with some sort of auto charge system. Our CBS 1500 is a good alternative. The Hornady auto charge can be a little temperamental from time to time, but it works too. You're gonna obviously need some brass if you don't save what you've been shooting. So first things first, if you're going to look to get into reloading, I would recommend saving the brass that you are shooting on the rounds that you buy from the store. That's how I got started. Brass, believe it or not, is a business. There's people that make a decent living off of buying, selling, working that stuff up and making some money at it. I mean, they move a lot of it. But it's something that I can't even afford to get into. But from there, you're gonna need your powders. I don't really know if anybody's trying to buy gunpowder right now. I really don't know what you're gonna do, because there's kind of a shortage on certain ones. That jug there in particular, and a couple others. They're extremely hard to come across. If the ones that have it don't really want to come off of it, because when it's gone, it's gone. There will be more on the shelf, but we don't know when at this point in time. Maybe 3 or 4 years down the road, if this video is still online, we'll look back and be able to say, oh, well, it's plentiful now. I'd only dream of that moment when it gets here. There's a lot of questions to ask. There's a lot of answers to be said. Really and truly, I've only got one reloading book. I'd like to buy a couple more, but it takes money. And at this point in time, $100 is more bullets, more gunpowder, more primers. And when you buy a couple more reloading books at $35 to $40 a piece, well, that's $70 to $80 that you could have spent on bullets. And then you're in the same boat as everybody else at that point. I should probably touch base on the sonic cleaner there. They make these in several different sizes. I started out just tumbling. Walnut Hole Media, as I mentioned before, it was dirty, dusty. I started rinsing my brass, and it made a bit of a difference. I tried just getting it cleaner. That's all I was trying to do. Well, then after going through and depriming and sizing and getting the case lube off, I was using the sonic cleaner to do that, to get it clean and ready to load. Now that I've got the wet tumbler, it does it all. So essentially, I spent the money on 2 pieces of equipment when I could have gone in cheaper and gotten them 1 piece of equipment to do 2 pieces worth. Now I have the K&M Precision arbor press, and I actually used this earlier tonight. I told you about the Lee chamber seating dies. You're anywhere from $60 to $90 for the die. Well, you just set it and set your die on there, pull that down, and you're good to go. You've seated the bullet. So that eliminates bullet run out. It is faster, believe it or not. It is more consistent than using this guy with a bullet seating die. Let's see if I can get these dies open. I always used RCBS, and then I started a few years ago with Hornady, mainly because I like their bullet seating die. That floating collar in there is supposed to help eliminate bullet run out. Well, I don't know if it actually does a major amount, but it is better than the RCBS. I do prefer RCBS sizing dies over the Hornady. I like the Hornady bullet seating dies. If I had everything to do over again, I'd probably still do the same thing that I've done now on the dies. And I would have got the arbor press and the chamber seating dies first instead of spending the money on the Concentricity Gauge. And don't get me wrong, that's not a bad purchase, because there's other things that you can do with it other than just checking bullet run out. Would have gone with them scales to start, and the powder measure that comes with the Lee press isn't a very good one. It does work, but it is inconsistent to nature. You'll find that different powders don't meter as well as others. I like that Hornady Quick Trickle. I really do. And I've loaded hundreds of rounds just trickling straight into that scale pan and seating in the single stage press. And I've loaded 50 rounds like that the night before the match. If I'm zero distractions really in the rhythm, I can knock out about 50 rounds in an hour. And that's why I bought this, because I'm always reloading the night before the match, it seems like. So that helps me out. And like I said, though, the faster you want to do this and the more time you want to spend at the range, the more it's going to cost you. And, guys, I'm just as broke as the next guy. It was starting to get a little more affordable for me, and then my son starts shooting, so now I'm broke again, and do everything I can to save money so I can turn around and buy more bullets, buy more powder, buy more primers. And at the end of the day, it's still fun. I wouldn't have it any other way. I still enjoy doing it, and that's both this reloading aspect and the shooting. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment, ask away. I've been doing this for several years, and there are several other videos on YouTube available. I know this one has ran long, but there's a lot of things here that when you get online and you start looking at prices, you can weed things out and just get the bare essentials. Your press, your some sort of tumbler to clean the brass. You can trim all your stuff by hand. Guys, I'm loading thousands of rounds. I'm not loading a couple of hundred. If I was still loading a couple hundred, maybe going through 50 rounds a month at the most, then yeah, I would have never bought that guy there. I would have never picked up the Concentricity Gauge or that or this. No, we'd still be sitting here with the good old-fashioned Lee single stage, your Lee cutter and lock stud with the ball grip, and fork out the extra few dollars for the ball grip. Your fingers will thank you. And you can chuck that lock stud in a cordless drill, so find you a cheap cordless drill somewhere to help your hands out on the other end, so you can motorize some of it. And from there, you can grow. I think you'll find, if you've never reloaded before, you'll find soon that it becomes more affordable to shoot. You can shoot more often, and you'll end up spending more because you shoot more, but you will also enjoy reloading, and you'll start spending a little bit more so that you can reload a little bit more volume and have a little less time at the reloading bench, maybe a little more overtime to pay for the hobby, and then before you know it, you're still spending more time at the range. And it's all good fun. It's a vicious cycle, but this is what keeps the peace, I guess. It's my place of zen, if you will. It really, a long work week, knock down 55, 56 hours, maybe even 60 or more, and then come in here. I can still spend 5 or 6 hours in this place at the weekend and really just clear my mind. So some people like to get some sort of music or whatever. Try to keep your speakers away from your digital scales if you do get some. And I've gone with an LED light up above. It's a lot of light, as you can see. And this is just a bedroom. There's 2 light bulbs in the center. I'll go ahead and shut this LED light off and show you the difference. So nowhere near as bright, and because you can see my shadow, so imagine working with that while you're trying to reload. So adequate lighting is important too, guys, but stay away from their fluorescence. Go with an LED. That's going to keep your digital scales in order. Something about that fluorescent likes to mess with them. I haven't experienced it, but I've talked with a lot of people that have dealt with it. I know I've missed something. I know there's just no way to cover it all, and I see we're already at 39 minutes, so without further ado, I'm going to cut this off. And like I said, the comment section's open. If y'all got any questions or concerns or anything, feel free to ask away or comment away, and I'll do the best I can to answer. So thanks for watching.